We pick up in these unfulfilled prophecies of the commanded Feast of Tabernacles, which speak of the coming of the Messiah, his birth, and his second coming with the restoration of Israel. Psalm 81:4 reads, "For it is a statute for Israel, an ordinance of the God of Jacob." There is a commanded high festival on the appearance of the new moon on the month of Tishri, called the Feast of Ingathering or Tabernacles, which occurred somewhere around the end of September or the beginning of October, the beginning of their civil year. I think the key significance in this passage is the blowing of the trumpet at the new moon, that's Rosh Hashanah, prophetically, because as Malachi 4:2-3 tells us, "But for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness," S-U-N of righteousness, that's the Hebrew word shemish, a figurative ray of brilliance. The Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings, and you will go out and playfully jump like calves from a stall. You will trample the wicked, for they will be ashes under the soles of your feet on the day I am preparing, says the Lord of hosts. He is coming to deliver them. The Feast of Tabernacles and Trumpets presents a clear and beautiful picture of Israel's future. Israel had 3 feasts that came at the beginning of the year: the Passover, the Feast of Pentecost, and the Feast of First Fruits. Now all have been prophetic and all have been fulfilled with Christ's advent, death, and resurrection. The last Feast of Tabernacles also are prophetic and as of yet are unfulfilled. The festival is a statute for Israel and a law from the God of Jacob. The Jews perform 2 important ceremonies, the first to do with water and the second to do with light. Let's look at the actual ceremonies themselves. The essence of their prophetic nature finds their metaphoric fulfillment in the person of Jesus Christ and his coming kingdom. You will recall that Jesus is the light of the world. And we are washed in the water of his word. That's Ephesians 5:16. These unfulfilled prophecies of the Feast of Tabernacles speak of the coming of the Messiah, his birth, and his second coming with the restoration of Israel. It will be a great day whose fulfillment is still in their future. About the birth of Jesus, it was an autumn birth, a day that can be established by the order of the priesthood, and because God is methodical, it most probably happened during Tabernacles. Here's a summary. Zechariah belonged to the priestly division of Abijah, one of the 24 orders of priests, and of the 24 orders of service, the family of Abijah was the 8th to serve. Their cycle of service began with the first Sabbath in the month of Nisan, the first month of the calendar year, somewhere between March and April. Each priest would serve for a period of 1 week, as well as the festivals. Without getting buried in the minutiae of priestly duties, Abijah was the 8th in line, which would mean that Zechariah would most likely have served in June and again in December. We read in Luke 1:8-24, at the point where Zechariah was serving, he went into the temple to burn incense while the worshippers were outside praying, and an angel of the Lord appeared to him. Zechariah was startled and gripped with fear. The angel told him not to be afraid, for your prayers have been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear a son, and you will call him John. He will be great in the sight of the Lord. You may recall Zechariah asked the angel, "How can this be? For I'm an old man and my wife is well along in years." To make a long story short, the angel told him this will happen at the appointed time. When his time of service was completed, he returned home. After this, his wife Elizabeth became pregnant and for 5 months remained in seclusion. This would put the time of the birth of John the Baptizer around Passover. We are given further information in Luke 1:26-28, which tells us in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent an angel to the virgin, pledged to be married to the man named Joseph. The angel went to Mary and said, "Greetings. You are highly favored. The Lord is with you." All of this tells us that John the Baptizer was 6 months older than Jesus. Here's the point. If John was born in the month of Nisan during the Passover, that would put Jesus' birth in the fall and likely during the Feast of Tabernacles. While there are several other valid methods of determining the birth of Jesus in the early autumn, here is an obscure one. You'll recall from Luke 2:8 about the shepherds in the field, and the environmental logic would dictate that they would not have been there in the winter, for shepherds typically take their flocks to the fields in the spring and on to the lingering autumn months. And while we don't know the exact date of Jesus' birth, we do know that it cannot be in December. Listen, I've written all of this to signify the prophetic significance hidden in the Jewish festivals.